very impressed with the governor's budget message. He obviously laid out exactly what the problems are in our state. He pointed out that I think that this is not unique to Illinois. All the states have these problems. He does propose some further cuts. We did cut $2.2 billion out of the budget last year, 11%. Proposes further cuts. He also talks about spending the money that we have wisely by having performance audits. He talks about the idea of rebidding contracts. And I have personally been working on and will sponsor legislation to have some pension reforms so that we can save money over the course of the next 35 years. Last year we were the only state in the nation that passed a jobs bill of the magnitude that we did. It's going to create a number of jobs starting in the spring, road construction and the like, and the governor's plan for tax credits for small businesses is going to create more jobs. We in the Senate last year also realized that we needed more revenues. We have a $13 billion deficit. The Civic Committee in Chicago has proposed tax increases of $7.8 billion. I don't think we need to have that high of an increase. But the governor has clearly pointed out that as part of his cuts, we'd have $1.2 billion in education, and clearly he has indicated to the General Assembly that if you want to avoid that, you have to consider voting for a surcharge. This is something we've already taken up in the Senate last year when we passed our revenues. So we are going to look to the House to ask them to consider this 1% surcharge that the governor has proposed.
We cut the budget by $2.2 million and also gave the governor further authority to cut the budget by an additional $1 billion. So the real issue is that revenues have declined, and we've got to find a way to meet our obligations with several cuts, as well as maybe some limited borrowing, as the governor talked about, strategic borrowing, but we've got also enhanced revenues just for the fundamental purpose of being able to pay our bills.
One thing we need to do is strongly consider the 1% income tax increase. That's not a new idea. It's been floating around the General Assembly for the past 8 years. It's been in the form of Senate Bill 750. The Senate passed House Bill 174, which would have done the exact same measure this past veto session. And now we're at a point now where the original intent of the income tax is back on education.
It is definitely a difficult time, and citizens have to pull together and remember why we are what we are. We are a democratic society with obligations to those of our citizenry that cannot help themselves, and we have obligations to educate our children to the best of their ability. And that, I think, the governor correctly outlined.
The cuts to human services, to me, that's unacceptable. I cannot see us cutting down anything further than what we've already cut down without really hurting the people. And people are hurting right now, especially the social services program, teen violence programs. There's a lot of things that are there that we cannot afford to cut because we're only going to create even a much more disastrous communities.
Based on my conversations with the governor's office and based on his speech today, we are not going to see a reduction in the MAP, which is clearly the bright side of this budget. As you know, the Monetary Award Program provides tuition assistance to people who can't afford it. It demonstrates, the Monetary Award Program has demonstrated that it is an investment in the future, not only for those individuals, but for the state of Illinois.
We got a lot on the table. We cannot borrow our way out of this. We cannot cut our way out of it. So we need to step up to the plate and do the right thing.
Not sending the money into municipalities, that's certainly for downstate Illinois, that's a major concern when you look at the infrastructure of many of our small communities now that can barely keep their water and their lights and their just basic services to our residents.
The way in which we restore credibility in our government is looking at pension reform, holding the line on spending, strategic cuts, opening up all contracts for competitive bid to save taxpayers money and increase efficiency, and make sure throughout every state agency they all have to come up with goals, objectives, performance-based measurements so we have better accountability on how taxpayers' dollars are being spent.
I think the governor did a good job of laying out just where we are with the crisis in our budget this year, and did his best to come forward with a very straight approach and how we resolve that. And it's very painful. It's very much an ugly budget this year. It's worse than last year's budget, but that's the reality that we're dealing with.
Well, I was very impressed. The governor was straight and direct and right to the point. We need to come up with some type of comprehensive reform, some new revenues for the state. There's no way we can cut ourselves out of this $13 billion worth of debt.